time last year, I did make this same exact video of my all-time favorite books, but I've decided that a year is a very long time, and I wanted to give that list a bit of an update. There still are going to be a lot of the same books that were in last year's video, but I also wanted to change out a few and add some in that were new. So with that said, this video is going to be my favorite books of all time as of 2023. So I should say right now that none of the books in today's video is in any particular order. I personally think that it's very hard to compare favorites because I love them each for the reasons of why I love them. And it's kind of very hard to compare things when they're not really per se comparable. Like I love this for this reason and I love this for this reason. And I can't really decide one over the other. So again, none of the books in today's video is in any particular order. But now with that said, I do have one that I did want to specifically put first because I feel like if I was ever stranded on a deserted island and I was only able to bring like one book or series with me, the series that I would choose, no questions asked, is the Thorns of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So this is definitely a bit basic of me, but I don't really care. I really think that I picked this series up at the perfect time in my reading journey, and I got such a connection to it that I'll never let that go. I have now read this series 4 times, and I feel like that is not enough. Like I can reread this series forever and never get sick of it, mostly because I feel like every time that I read it, I fall in love with it more and more because I pick up on more and more. And I really do think that that is like props to Sarah J. Maas for being able to write something that every time you read it, you pick up on like foreshadowings and comparisons and just little Easter eggs that she's dropped here and there. And you just get more appreciative of the way that it was built up every single time that you read it. So even though I absolutely fell in love with it the first time that I read it, every single time that I read it after that, I just fell in love with it more and more. And I feel like that is why this has to be my #1 series of all time, and I don't think that that's ever going to change. I'm not going to explain to you what this series is about because it is extremely popular, but if you have not yet read it and you were interested in learning a little bit more about it, I do have a video linked down in the description below where I give an explanation of what it's about, what you can expect from it, and also a couple of options on how to read it because it is an 8-book series and there are a couple of ways that you can go about reading it, and I explained it in that video. So I'll have that link down below, but I will say before I move on from this book that even though I do love every single book in this series so freaking much, if I had to be really picky and just choose a couple of them, my favorites out of the series would be Heir of Fire, Assassin's Blade, Queen of Shadows, and Empire of Storms. And then if I had to be even pickier than that, I would say that my top 2 was Queen of Shadows and Assassin's Blade, with really Heir of Fire like sneaking up very closely to that, and then Empire of Storms. But really, I love all 4 of them, and it's very hard to choose, like I just said. So anyway, absolutely love this series. I do love a couple of the books in it a little bit more than others, but either way, without a doubt, my #1. So while we're on the topic of Sarah J. Maas, I did also want to quickly mention A Court of Thorns and Roses. So without a doubt, I love Thorns of Glass more, which is, I know, an unpopular opinion, and that's why I had to specifically say it, that I like Thorns of Glass more over ACOTAR, even though I know that ACOTAR is the more popular of the 2. But either way, I still am a really big fan of the ACOTAR series, but mostly because of A Court of Mist and Fury. Like, without this book, I probably would just feel very mad about this series overall, but I do love book 1 because it gets me to book 2, and I do love book 3 because it's the ending of book 2. Like, this book just brings the entire series together for me. I like the novella, which is, I guess, book 4, and then book 5 is okay to me. I was never a fan of Nesta and Cassian, so I still like the book because it's a Sarah J. Maas book and it's a part of this universe, but like, I don't absolutely love it, and I don't even reread it every time I revisit this series, which I believe I've revisited it at least 4 times now. I don't know, but either way, I am a huge fan of the series, but mostly because of A Court of Mist and Fury. I love this book so much that if for some reason I got stranded on that deserted island and I couldn't bring Thorns of Glass with me because it was a whole series and I only had room for 1 book or something like that, this would be the book that I would choose out of my entire library. And I feel like that doesn't even really need an explanation, because if you've read it before, then you understand where I'm coming from. And if you haven't read it, then you should just read it so that you can understand where I'm coming from. So with that said, before we do move on, I did want to just give a quick shout out to A Court of Mist and Fury from Rysand's POV, which I feel like has to just get tacked on with this as another one of my now favorite books, because it's basically this book just from Rise's POV. Like, this is Feyre's POV, this is now Rise's POV. So this wasn't actually written by Sarah J. Maas. It is a fanfic. It was written by Illyrian Tremors. It is available to be read for free online, and when I did read it, I did actually make an entire review video about it, and I kind of explained how I actually got this into my hands and how I learned how to hand bind because of this and things along those lines. So I'll have that video linked down below in case you missed it and you wanted to check it out. But besides that, I did just want to quickly say that I'm actually giving away 2 copies of this book this month. So over the month of April, I am giving away one of these books on my Patreon. So every month on my Patreon, I'm giving away one hand-binded book. And for the month of April, it is one of these. So if you did want to join my Patreon to enter that giveaway, I will have information for that down below. I also have step-by-step tutorials on there in case you wanted to learn how to hand make this for yourself. But even besides for that giveaway, I'm actually giving away one more copy of this on my Instagram. I'm announcing the giveaway tomorrow. So if you're seeing this the day that this video came out, then congratulations, you're getting early access to what's coming tomorrow on my Instagram. But either way, over the weekend of April 7th to April 10th, I'm going to be giving away one more copy of A Court of Mist and Fury from Rhysand's POV, and all you have to do is be following me on Instagram and then like find the reel that I'm posting about it. So that will be linked down below too in case you wanted to follow me on Instagram if you aren't already. And with that said, let's move on. So obviously this next book is one of my all-time favorite books because it's on this list, but I feel like it really deserves a little bit of an honorable mention for being on this list the longest. And that series is the Trial series by Amanda Hocking. So I originally found this series when I was probably in like middle school or so, and it has been one of my all-time favorite series ever since, and it has never moved from that spot. Like if I never read Throne of Glass, this would probably be on my #1 spot just because of how much I absolutely love it. I have read this series so many times to the point that I can unfortunately no longer reread it because I just know it way too well. But that should just tell you how much I actually love it, because I probably read it, like 7 or 8 times, and it was just as good every single freaking time up until that last time when I realized that I just know it too well, that it's kind of taking the fun out of it because I literally know what she's gonna say next word for word, because that was just how familiar I was with the entire thing. But that's not the point. My point is that this series is so underrated, and it honestly should be a crime for how many people have not yet read this series. So I will take any chance I get to recommend this series and put it in front of people's faces. So if you're not familiar with this series, I will quickly tell you what it's about. You're basically following this girl who is a changeling. She was switched at birth. She grew up always thinking that she was a regular human being, maybe a little bit different than everybody else, but still a regular human being. But then she finds out that she was actually switched at birth. Her mother is the queen of the trial. She's really a troll, which is kind of like a fairy. Don't get turned off by the idea of a troll, but that's kind of what they call themselves. And basically she has magical powers, and she's gonna have to go back to her queen mother, learn how to be a princess, learn what the trial community is all about, and also learn how to use her powers. Mostly because they are currently at war with another trial community, and she is going to have to help save them. So it has politics, it has war, it has magic, it also has romances. There's a bodyguard romance, there's an enemies to lovers, prince romance. There is just so much good stuff going on, and it's so sad that more people have not yet read this series. So if you haven't read it yet and you like YA fantasy romance series, please check this book out. And then while we're talking about YA books, I did also want to mention The Raven Cycle by Maggie Steve Waters. So I'm holding up the first book, which is The Raven Boys, but there are 3 more books in this series. And I have decided that this is one of my all-time favorite series. So I think that there are a lot of reasons why something can be on your all-time favorite list. And one of them is definitely like a nostalgia, rereadability, comfort sort of read. And that is what I've decided that this series is. What's funny is that this time last year when I was making this video, I had read this series twice at the time. And yet for some reason I didn't put it onto my all-time favorite list. But since then, I've decided that I want to be a little bit pickier with what I say is my all-time favorite. And one of the things that will make a book be my all-time favorite is the comfort feel that it could bring to me and the rereadability that it has. And I do think that even though if I had read this book for the first time now, I might not feel the same way about it, I did read it at the perfect time in my reading journey. And therefore, I now have that feeling that comes along with like just a book that you can jump right back into and just feel like you're at home. So even though for some reason it didn't make it onto last year's list, it's now making it onto this year's list. And then another series that I cannot believe didn't make it onto last year's all-time favorite list is the Shadowhunter Universe by Cassandra Clare. So I'm only holding up the first book, which is City of Bones. Like this is the first book that was written in the entire universe, but I am generally a fan of all of the books in the universe. I do have more favorites and least favorites. I'll have my tier ranking video for the entire Shadowhunter Universe linked down below in case you wanted to see which one as I like over the others. But overall, I am a massive fan of the entire Shadowhunter Universe, and I'm pretty sure that when I made last year's video, I just just completely forgot about this series because there is no reasonable explanation to explain why it didn't make it onto my all-time favorite list from last year. I knew that it was one of my all-time favorite universes at that time. Somehow it didn't make it into the video, and now I am, rectifying that problem, issue, situation. I don't really know what to say, but either way, definitely one of my all-time favorite universes. So I've realized that we've been talking about a lot of fantasy series, which I haven't really done on purpose, but even though I'm a massive, massive, massive romance fan, I don't really have a lot of romance books that feel like all-time favorites, mostly because I feel like romance books are like filler books of sorts. There aren't many that really stick with me for a very long time, that stand out of all others, that I'm like, without a doubt, this is my favorite. I can reread them over and over again, no questions asked. Like, a lot of them, even if I might absolutely love them, don't really feel like they deserve to be on my all-time favorite list, besides for all of my favorite Mariana Zapata books. So yes, I'm currently holding up 8 books by one author, but I have read every single book by this author, and these are my favorite of hers. And no, I'm not going to try to narrow this down and be like, well, which one is my favorite out of this whole stack? Because I love them each for different reasons. And like I said at the beginning of this video, it's very hard to compare your favorites because you love them each for different reasons. So I absolutely love every single book that I'm holding up, and these definitely have a rereadability with them because I have reread them multiple times. I'm currently on my 4th round of rereading all of these, and they are just as good the 4th time around. I just finished rereading these top 2 ones, and I'm slowly going to make my way through the rest of them. But my point is that without a doubt, I absolutely love these books so much more than any of my other romance books that I have. Like I said, I can reread other romance books, but there is just something different about these that really make them feel like they are my all-time favorites. And I should also say that if you did want to know what all of the books that I was holding up by Mariana Zapata were about, then I do have an ultimate guide to Mariana Zapata video that I will have a link down below where I talk about what every single one of her books are about, what order you should read them in if you were planning to read all of them, and also how they connect, because technically, even though they're standalones, they do all take place in the same universe. So with that said, the next all-time favorite book that I wanted to share with you is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. So I just finished doing my reread of this series. I had read it for the first time probably like 2, maybe 3 years ago, and I remember absolutely loving it. But then time passed and I kind of just forgot about how much I really loved it. And now that I did my reread, I realized that it does deserve to be on that like next level all-time favorite list because it just is so classically good. It is an adult high fantasy series, so it's very heavy on like politics and the magic system and the world building and war and political intrigue and things along those lines. It does have a minor romance subplot, but that's definitely not the main point of the story. But I still absolutely love this series, and I'm so happy that I revisited it before I made this video because I do really believe that it does deserve to be on that next level of like, the series is just so freaking good that it is one of my all-time favorite books that really just like stands out from all of the other books that I have read and loved in the past. Next, I wanted to talk about Manacled by Senlin Yu. So this is another fanfic that I recently hand-binded for myself and then read and reviewed on my channel. So I will have that review video linked down below in case you did want to check it out. But I absolutely loved this story. If you're not familiar, it is a Hermione and Draco fanfic that basically takes place in the Harry Potter universe in an alternate reality where Voldemort actually won the war and then the events that took place after that because of it. And this was the first Draco and Hermione fanfic that I did ever read, and I was completely blown away. I mean, if you had seen my review for it, then you just know about how much I gushed about how crazy this book was, and I just have not stopped thinking about it ever since I read it. So this is the most recent new read of mine that I have added to this all-time favorite list, but I really do think that it deserves to be here. This is just a book that completely blew me away. It was so different than anything that I've ever read, and I haven't stopped thinking about it in the past like 6 weeks since I read it. So even though it's a new read, I do think that it will forever be an all-time favorite read, and I cannot wait to revisit it. So yeah, Manacled by Senlin Yu. And the last book slash series that I want to talk about for today's video is the Addicted slash Calloway Sister series by Kristen Becker-Ritchie. So this is a collection of 10 books, and I am adding all 10 books as a whole onto my all-time favorite list, obviously, because like one wouldn't be the other without all of them together, you know? But either way, if you're not familiar with the universe, I will have a video linked down below for you on what all the books are about, how to read them, and like some frequently asked questions and everything like that. But either way, I've decided that this is definitely one of my all-time favorite books just because every time I think about about these characters, it just puts a smile on my face. Like, I just loved my time when I read all of these probably like a year and a half or so ago, and I definitely got to get around to rereading them, but it's such a commitment that I've just kept on like pushing it off and pushing it off. But either way, I absolutely love this series to death, and if you were gonna ask me which books are my favorite out of all 10, I would definitely say Hot House Flower, Addicted After All, and Some Kind of Perfect. But I really do love the entire like universe as a whole. So either way, just wanted to like, you know, say this one last, but I can't really spend too much time in it because my dogs are begging to come out and play, so I really got to get going. So either way, that is all of the books that I wanted to share with you that are my all-time favorite books that I really feel like just stand out from all of the other books that I have read. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I'd love to hear what your all-time favorite books are. So leave me a comment down below if you did want to share with me what your favorite books are. And with that said, give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you are not currently subscribed. And that's all. So thank you so much again, and until next time, enjoy reading.